On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about sun. Oh, it's just
sun. It's just sun.
You cannot really vocalize the part of their name that is the symbol for an amplifier.
Sure, it's a logo is what it is.
Yes. Anyway, the album is Black One. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal. We like talking about it. It's the spookiest month of the year.
Sure.
So I decided we should listen to a spooky album.
Very spooky.
It's Black One.
It's one of the doomiest albums that's ever doomed to doom.
It is perhaps the album that best encapsulates the atmosphere that I always felt like doom metal is supposed to evoke.
Right.
But generally, doom metal does not evoke. Like, you think of doom metal and you think of the foundation of like early Black Sabbath songs and whatnot that sound spooky and evil.
Sure.
But outside of Black Sabbath, doom metal eventually kind of grew into, it's mostly most of the popular doom metal bands that exist today are stoner metal bands.
Sure. Which
generally do not evoke feelings of despair and fear. No. And is mostly just, whoa, we're going out in space, dude.
Yeah, a lot of doom metal doesn't evoke a fear and it evokes the munchies and nap time.
It doesn't evoke a feeling of doom.
Yeah, right.
With the, as far as albums we've listened to lately, because we've been listening to a lot of doom metal this year. I don't know what that says about reality.
2020? Yeah.
But what we've talked about on the podcast, at least, the only other album outside of Black Sabbath that we've listened to that evokes feelings of despair was Mirror Reaper.
Yeah.
Which is, that is so filled with despair.
Right.
Or at least it was at the time. And it is supposed to be. But now I just kind of can listen to it any time.
Right.
And it doesn't really put me in a mood the way it used to. Now it's just like, wow, this is so slow but intricate. Like, it's crazy how complicated the mix of it is.
Right.
The sheet music, I can imagine, would not look particularly complicated.
Is there sheet music for that?
Someone has probably made it. But, if you were looking at the tablature for it, it would not look particularly complicated, I reckon.
No.
But when you're just listening to all of the layers that are going on at any particular moment and then realize that it's 87 minutes of that, it's very impressive. But yeah, we'll talk more about Sun a little bit later. First of all, how's your weekend been?
It's been great. It was an extended weekend. I took off, as we weren't here last Wednesday. But it was my wife's birthday, and then we took off for 4 days. We went to Grand Forks. Actually,
the lovely vacation destination of Grand Forks, North Dakota.
We really could have gone anywhere because we really didn't so much leave the hotel room.
You just wanted to not be in your house.
Yeah.
For a couple of days, which I get.
And we wanted to not be in our house, and we wanted to be able to get takeout that wasn't something we could normally get.
Yeah.
Which we did.
Some of the local restaurants of a different place.
Yes. Local and chain restaurants of a different place.
Yes.
So it was pretty fun. We stayed at the Hampton. The Hampton Inn, yes. It was a Hampton suite, and we got it's a suite. We rented a suite. We got in there. It was not a suite.
It was not a suite.
No, it was a suite in that it had a bed and a couch.
Yes. What was it? Last year when I went to Fargo, I can't remember where we stayed. It might have been a Hampton, or it might have been like Holiday Inn Express or something. It was like a slightly more upscale, but still definitely chain hotel.
Sure.
But that was like one of the biggest hotel rooms I've ever stayed in.
Nice.
Where it was like the hotel room was probably roughly the size of my apartment.
Wow.
Like 2 king-sized beds, very well spaced apart. There was there was a coffee table, there was a couch and a coffee table. There was like a little living room area.
Nice.
It was a massive hotel room that we stayed in when my whole family basically went to a buddy of mine, his wedding last September. But it was an insanely large hotel room. Yeah.
Nice.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I went, it was Record Store Day Volume 3.
Oh, shoot.
Yesterday. Because I think they, instead of having one big day, they split it up into 3 smaller days.
Sure.
Is what they did. And I think yesterday was the last one.
Of the year.
Of the year, I think. And so I finally went to the record store here in town because I haven't gone down there since COVID got started. And I keep on meaning to head down there and pick something up, but I keep on forgetting. So I strapped the mask on and went on down, and I got 4 albums.
Nice.
I got what did I get? I got the new album by Paradise Lost. I don't remember what it's called. It's
a great album.
It's a really, really fucking good album.
It is.
It's a really good album.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what it's called though.
I can't remember either off the top of my head.
And I finally completed my collection of studio released and recorded Mastodon albums. I finally picked up The Hunter.
Nice. That was the last one you didn't have.
Yeah, it was the only one I didn't have. If the band likes to count Call of the Mastodon, but Call of the Mastodon's a compilation album.
Sure.
It's not, one of their studio full lengths, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I also got Brain, No Worky. Oh, I got Individual Thought Patterns.
Oh, Sweet Death. Awesome.
By Death.
Yeah.
And then there was one more. Oh, I got Pyroclasts by Sun.
Really?
Because I was just flipping through all the albums. I was like, oh, more Sun. Sure. Let's pop this out.
It's different than this album, Pyroclast, isn't it? A bit?
Yeah. I mean, their newer stuff trends more towards their newer stuff trends less towards black metal than this does. At least like this. I mean, it would be difficult to describe this as a black metal album sonically, and as far as the songwriting goes.
Right.
But certainly the featured artists and the guest vocalists and whatnot, many of them came from black metal bands.
All right.
And throughout their history, they've been associated with various different black metal bands. I think at one point on some album, Attila did guest vocals for them. But their newer stuff has trended to be a bit lighter in atmosphere and tone, and just trending more towards standard ambient metal versus like a dark ambient metal.
Which is what
it's less spooky. It's a lot less spooky than this album is.
Right.
And it is you can just easily tell by the album cover too. The album cover for Pyroclasts is, bright oranges and pinks and whatnot. And the album art for this is
not that
black and white and terrifying to behold. It seems to depict a woman that is like like a creepy old hag that's like melted into a tree or something like that. It's fucking spooky album art, man. And the inside covers of the double album that I have, because I have this album on vinyl. Right. The inside cover there is also seems just to be a different perspective of the object on the cover art.
And the vinyl is white.
Yeah. It's white vinyl. The vinyl for Pyroclasts is pink.
Really?
It's
like a hot pink or just a regular?
Yeah, like a hot pink.
Wow.
You leaning away from your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I got comfortable in this chair.
I know.
This chair is very
hard.
comfortable.
You could always lean back and bring the mic with you.
Yeah, let's do that. There we go. That's how we'll do that.
It's just pointed away from your face now.
See, I have no headphones, so I can't hear any of this.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I don't know that
I need to fix our splitter headphone situation. Speaking of like creepy ghouls and hags and whatnot, I'm currently working on a D&D one shot.
Oh, really?
That I'm going to be running for some of my friends. I was hoping to maybe do it for Halloween weekend, but I don't think that's happening.
No.
Just as far as people's schedules and my own ability to prepare things goes.
Sure.
But it is Monster Mash. So everyone is playing as some sort of monstrous creature. And they are all working for this lich, and they all live together and work together in this dungeon. And they're all like,
not in a graveyard?
It's not in a graveyard. I've structured their little world basically as a dark fantasy version of The Office.
Okay.
Where they are all like different department heads. And their boss is this lich who's in charge of the dungeon. The boss of the dungeon is their literal boss.
Okay.
And then each of them is the head of a little different department. For example, my buddy Alex is playing a goblin who is the head of HR. But what human resources means for them.
Well, I thought you said A-jar.
No.
A-H-R.
No, HR.
Yeah.
What human resources means in this context, though, is capturing and torturing humans and figuring out what to do with their remains.
Sure.
You know, decorating the dungeon with their bones and flayed hides in interesting and tasteful manners.
Of course.
Literally using humans as a resource.
Is there an assistant to the lich?
They're going to be kind of unknowingly competing for that position. Currently,
not assistant lich, assistant to the lich.
Assistant to the Death Lord.
Yeah,
is what it is. And they're competing for that position because the previous assistant to the Death Lord tried to usurp power from him and was disintegrated in front of everybody. And currently there is a temp filling in who is a spectator, they're kind of like half. Somebody took half of the eye stalks from a beholder and animated them. So instead of 8 eye tentacles, they have 4.
Wow.
And they're generally much less egomaniacal assholes than beholders are.
Okay.
And as a result, also somewhat less. Spectators have no ambition, essentially.
Sure.
They just want to kind of float around, and they're often assigned to guard things.
I mean, literally, their name means just to watch.
Yeah, basically, that's their job.
Of course, beholder also means to watch, but
every single variant of the beholder has a name like that. That's just a synonym for.
Is there a watcher? Is there a
something like that? They're the only one that is not related in some way, because like you have Mind Witness, which is Mind Flayer that has or like a beholder that's been infected by a Mind Flayer tadpole.
Oh, sure.
As a Mind Witness and stuff like that. The only one that isn't is the Death Tyrant, which is a beholder that has become a lich.
A lich beholder.
Yeah.
Because Death Tyrant.
Any creature that's capable of casting arcane magic and learning to be a wizard is able to become a lich.
I'm surprised, but I would be surprised to find out that there's no metal band called Death Tyrant.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy if there was not. I think pretty much every D&D monster has a band named after it. Because metalheads are nerds and they've played D&D.
This is my band, Bugbear.
Probably. Hey, there's probably like a folk metal band called Bug, or like a symphonic metal band called Bugbear.
Sure.
But he's we got the guy who's the head of HR. Then we have the head of waste management, who is a lizard folk druid. Who his job and the way he cleans up waste in the dungeon is by eating everything.
Yeah, like you do.
The dungeon used to have gelatinous cubes that would clean everything.
What happened to those?
Well, there was a very clumsy kobold who broke the control orb, and the gelatinous cubes tried to kill everyone. And so the kobold, by the way, was flayed by HR. And afterwards, this lizard folk, who the goblins call their word for huge. Mm-hmm. I've decided the goblinoid word for huge is Chungus.
Chungus.
So
awesome.
His name is Grom or something like that. But
he's a Chungus.
Yeah, he is an extremely obese lizard folk druid who lives down in like this filthy refuse pit. And people just throw like scraps of garbage they throw the garbage into the pit and he eats it.
I mean, did just like their chamber pots go into this pit and everything? I mean,
probably. I don't know. I don't know about that, but bits of bone and just all kinds of gross, nasty garbage.
Gets eaten by
He's the trash man. And his little companions. I told him like because everybody else has like their underlings. Mm-hmm. Chungus's underlings is like a really gross rat, a pile of rot grubs, some centipedes, and an extremely emaciated carrion crawler.
Okay.
Which doesn't get to eat because Chungus eats all of the food the carrion crawler would normally eat.
Aw, poor carrion crawler.
But then we have a hag who is in charge of the treasury, and she's extremely like OCD.
Sure.
And counts all the coins. And we have a undead minotaur who is a construction contractor who has been hired to basically renovate the dungeon and build new traps and murder holes and acid pits and all kinds of things. And
maybe make a maze of it.
Hey, and I doubt any of them listen to this, so I will tell you.
Yeah.
The plot of it is going to be that their boss, whose name is Torvak the Undying One.
Okay.
Torvak only moved into this dungeon about a century ago. And it was built inside of this mine that was actually owned by a local baron who hasn't been seen in about a century. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't been seen in about a century because he's a vampire who decided to go into hibernation.
Oh, really?
And he has recently woke up and he's going to send a whole bunch of vampire spawn to try and take the dungeon back. Mm-hmm. And these vampire spawn are going to either that or I think maybe not vampire spawn, but maybe... the whole reason that I like one of them might be a vampire spawn, I want them to be adventurers because I like the idea of like you're playing monsters, you're fighting adventurers. So if they're all vampire spawn, it doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense.
Sure.
But I like the idea of like, how did this vampire get in here? Don't they need permission to enter somebody else's premises? Well, maybe
if they're vampire, what's the word for it that they do in Skyrim? Vampire.
I don't remember.
Thralls, vampire thralls.
Well, what it is though, the reason why they can enter the dungeon is because their boss owns the dungeon.
Sure. So
it is not their residence. They don't need to get permission because they've gotten permission from the owner, from the person who actually has the deed to this land and has told them you can enter this. Okay. I think the rest of them are going to be regular adventurers, and there's one of them that's going to be a vampire spawn, and they can figure that out. Like, wow, this is a vamp. And then the next part of it is they're going to the guy's mansion because their boss, who by the way is on his yearly phylactery filling trip.
Sure.
He's like, my phylactery's hidden at a different safe location and I need to go feed it some human souls so I don't, disintegrate and turn into a skull with jewels for eyes.
Right.
That just floats around cackling.
That's no fun.
Because that's what a demi-lich is. It's a lich that has failed to fulfill its phylactery's needs. He is away on vacation, essentially.
Sure.
And he's going to like astrally project back to them because he didn't hear from the spectator, who, by the way, the spectator is going to be like floating in the middle of the room as they're having like a manager's meeting.
Yeah. And
then a piece of the ceiling is just going to drop on him. And on top of that piece of the ceiling is going to be adventurers. Who, like it's going to be the middle.
This is where our story begins.
Yeah, it's going to be the middle of the meeting. And the spectator is going to be saying some things, and then the ceiling bursts open. A giant slab of rock lands on top of him, and then there's 5 adventurers in the room who thought they were just going to be sneaking in. But
hey guys.
oh no. That didn't go well. And then attack happens. After that, their boss is going to order them to find the creature that hired them, which means they're going to have to go to the vampire's secret mansion. And I get to do a ridiculous Dracula impression for the rest of the session, which I'm very excited about. Originally, I was going to have the adventurers be hired by a gold dragon who was pretending to be a wizard. Yeah, because that's what gold dragons do. Is they're like gold dragons very rarely spend time actually living as a dragon. Most of the time, they are polymorphed as a human, walking around and observing people. And I was going to have it be, this wizard hired these adventurers, and they go into this wizard's tower. And they're like, all right, old man, time to die. And the old man's like, 1 moment.
Dragon.
It's a giant dragon. But I was so tickled by the idea of getting to do a Dracula impression that I couldn't resist. So I am going to be doing that instead, because I also think it's more in the theme of Halloween and the idea of the session being called Monster Mash.
Blah, blah, blah.
That they're getting to fight a monster, even though they themselves are also monsters. It's basically, corporate espionage, but fantasy D&D. So
that's fun.
That should be fun. I hope. I was mentioning speaking of like corporate espionage, I finished watching The Boys season 2. Very good season.
Was it as good as the first? I haven't seen the second season yet.
I mean, I would say it's as good as the first. It's been a while since I've watched the first season. I haven't watched the first season since it came out, basically.
Well, I started rewatching, and the problem is that in order to watch The Boys, all the children have to be asleep.
Yeah.
I cannot watch that with the kids up.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Season 2, even more than the first season, you would not want the kids to be awake for. Season 2 is even gorier, even more violent. There's a lot of really, really gross, really heinous shit happening in season 2. Fucking diabolical. And it's great. I thought it was amazing. I've got no problems with season 2. Yeah, I thought it was great. And the way that the season ends, once again, it was not as hard of a cliffhanger as season 1 has a hard cliffhanger.
Yes, you're like, what?
For its ending.
Yeah.
The way that season 2 ends is a much softer cliffhanger. Things wrap up pretty nicely.
So if they don't make a season 3, it'll be okay.
I'm pretty sure they are making a season 3. In fact, I was reading, there was some mention of a teaser for season 3 online somewhere, but I didn't look that up. After I kind of forgot to see if that was available somewhere. But the way that season 2 ends is definitely, it leaves you wondering like, well, what the fuck is going to happen now? There's a lot of things that wrap up really nicely, but there's one thing that happens where it's like, oh fuck. Oh, how is that gonna, okay. So yeah. I'm excited for more of The Boys, and there are a lot of moments. Pretty much, it's like the first season where there is a moment in every episode that leaves your jaw hanging open in shock.
Okay,
this season does not spare any of those moments. They happen as frequently, if not more frequently. But yeah, it's a good season. Good stuff.
All right.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
Started playing more Fallout New Vegas again. Started a new campaign a couple months ago and then didn't finish playing it. And so I'm trying to get back into that more regularly.
I was kind of had a few father-son moments with my youngest child there. And for some reason, it just inspired me to replay God of War. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Boy. There is a moment, mild spoilers. There is a moment towards the end of season 2 of The Boys where there was a particular shot of Carl Urban that made me think of God of War.
Really?
where I was just expecting him to look over and go, boy. I think it's the huge bushy beard that Carl Urban has got.
I suppose, yeah.
But
and the shaven head.
Yeah, and the shaven head and the ashen skin and all the tattoos that Carl Urban has.
Yeah. Talking about the singer from Australia.
Yeah. Country singer Carl Urban.
Right.
Known for his propensity for calling people cunts. Imagine if Keith Urban went on stage and was like, "G'day, cunts.
How are you cunts tonight?
You here watching some fucking country music? All right then. Okay."
And he breaks into some Spice Girls music. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
I was also playing a bit of Doom Eternal. I turned down the difficulty more again.
Yeah.
Because I want to play at least a little bit of Doom Eternal every day and get further in that campaign. And then I can play the DLC that came out over the weekend.
Right.
Which I've heard is incredibly difficult.
Really?
I've heard they doubled down on all of the things that made Doom Eternal difficult and basically said, if you don't like these things, fuck you, Doom Eternal's not for you.
Excellent.
Which
good to hear.
I appreciate from a consumer standpoint of like, oh, these are people that are not going to dumb down their game for all the people who said it was too hard. They're doubling down and really committing to, this is a game for people who are serious about shooters and are serious about getting good. And this is not a casual game. They doubled down on the idea that Doom Eternal is not a casual game.
Right.
So yeah, it's I'm terrified of the idea of two Marauders at once. I'm scared. I'm scared.
Yeah, and I've only ever played the game on I'm Too Young to Die. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think id Software would be kind of disappointed in you.
Yeah.
But I think also some of the people at id Software would look at you and be like, yeah, you're 46. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, we mean id Software. You got my fucking $60. Don't judge me.
Don't judge me. Anyway, we should get talking about Black One by Sun.
Indeed, the most thrash metal album I've listened to.
Yeah, this is speed metal right here.
100% speed metal.
Sun. So Sun is an American ambient metal band. Is probably the best way to describe them. Sure. They've been around for a while now. Let me pull up their page just to make sure I don't say something stupid.
But your laptop.
I put it somewhere and didn't grab it before we got started. But yeah, they're from Seattle. They formed in 1998. They've done all kinds of stuff, but most of it you could describe as dark, droning, ambient metal. They generally, what they do is they combine the guitar tone of doom metal with the idea of like drone rock of like, this is not riff driven in the slightest.
No,
this is you can go a minute between notes basically. There are no drums. I think I feel like there are not drums. Is there no percussion
there at all?
I'm not here. Let me look. Who are the members?
Some percussion.
There are only two members listed, being Stephen O'Malley and Greg Anderson, because I think there's kind of a revolving door of guest artists. Band style is characterized by slow tempos, distorted guitars, lack of rhythm and melody, and alternative tunings. I don't think there is any.
I feel like there was some percussion. But not any kind of a. Nobody's sitting at a trap set.
Yeah, nobody's sitting on a throne here. Let me look up the page for this one because they do list the personnel for this album is kind of staggering. Album from 2005. This also turned 15 last weekend. Was it?
Last weekend.
It turned 15 years old. So it features a number of black metal musicians. The musicians does not list what instruments they played. So I guess I cannot really answer that question. Here we go. So on the first track, providing vocals, bowed cymbals, flies, drums, guitars, atmosphere is Oren Ambarachi, who has, I think, performed with a whole bunch of different acts, including Merzbow, which is kind of a dark ambient band, I think. The second track features Mystic Fog. Oh, that's just Greg Anderson, who is a band member. My brain's not working, so let's just try and restart. Do you think this album slaps?
No, it does not.
Not at all.
It does not. That's not how you would describe. It's good.
Yeah,
it's very good, but it's one of those things. You made the joke earlier that Sun. What happened was that they warmed up and then they left their instruments plugged in overnight, and then the next day they were mixing the album.
Yeah, that was a Hard Times article. Yeah, that Sun left their amplifiers on overnight, and the engineer left the session recording. And when they got back into the studio the next day, the engineer was like, "All right, we're done.
That's it. It's a wrap.
That was a great job, guys. Good job." But this is very much not an album that slaps.
It is not. I mean, I know at least the last 3 tracks. Let's listen to say that the last track on this. There's a bell that plays every few seconds for 6 fucking minutes.
Yeah, it's a 16-minute track.
Yeah,
the last 3 tracks are all at least 13 minutes long. I think.
There's one that's 11, but yeah.
There's a lot of long ass tracks on here too. And this is very spooky.
It is very spooky.
The opening track, which is by far the shortest, which is 2 minutes, is just an intro. And that is just I don't even know what's making the noise. I don't even know where the sound comes from. But it sounds like right. And then there's like I saw an instrument, which it's the type of instrument that they often use for doing the soundtrack of horror movies, where what it is it's like this hollow metal thing that has all kinds of springs welded onto it.
Yeah.
And you can just take other objects and like scrape them across the metal or tap them on it. And it creates this reverberation that sounds, it sounds like it's coming from down the hallway on an abandoned metal ship. And that's kind of the opening track sounds like ambient music from a horror movie.
Sure.
Basically.
And then the rest of the album sounds like ambient music from
a horror movie. Yeah. But I think the first track more than anything else, because there's no guitar on the first track.
Right.
It's just ambient noises, basically.
That happened to me a lot listening to this. I listened to this twice, and it happened to me a lot of times where I'd be listening to it, and then suddenly, like after a decade or so, some guitar would get and be like, oh yeah, this is a metal album that I'm listening to.
Basically. And the rest of the album is also punctuated by performances from different vocalists,
right? Who
are usually of the black metal persuasion. It's usually kind of howled and growled vocals. There's musicians, 2 guys from the band Zather or Zasther, Xasthur, Zasther.
Or Shasther.
Malefic and Rest. Apparently, there was something I read where on one of the tracks, the band supposedly went so far as to lock the claustrophobic Malefic in a casket to record the vocals for Bathory Erzsébet. The final track.
Yeah.
And you can kind of notice on that track, by the way, his vocals sound muted, like they are coming from the other side of a casket, perhaps. I don't know if that is true, but it's Sun, so why not? I've seen so many pictures of these guys performing live, which is, by the way, you can barely see the band because they I think, spend a lot of money on Smoke Machine.
Sure. Didn't we say this about, I mean, I feel like we're talking about Bell Witch again. I mean, they did the same. It's also two guys in the band with lots of Smoke Machine.
Yeah. I don't think Bell Witch quite goes as far as Sun does and Sun is usually accompanied by guest musicians with them. But whoever is in the band at any given moment is usually clad in very thick flowing black robes and obscured by fog machines such that all you can make out of them is the outline of this robed figure.
Sure.
And usually they are backlit by, I think it's usually red lighting, especially with some of their most recent works that, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, their most recent works, the album art tends to be more on the red spectrum. Life Metal was the one that preceded Pyroclasts.
Life Metal.
Yeah.
The opposite of death metal.
Yeah, which was, I don't know if it was a reference. I don't know if the joke was also made in the book for Lords of Chaos. But if you remember from Lords of Chaos, there's a point where it's like the first time they let Varg hang out with them. They're shitting on death metal basically because for some reason I think it's because it was what was popular in the metal scene at the time because it was the early 90s. But for some reason, Euronymous didn't like death metal. And so he made a joke that it should be called life metal. And everybody laughed because it was badly written dialogue. Either that or that's just the way that conversation went. And it was a group of incredibly cringy people, which is
I think it's probably a combination of the both. Yeah,
it was bad dialogue in the movie, but it was probably also extremely cringy dialogue in real life, too, because there are a bunch of cringy people.
Yes. Well, but he's not so much in Euronymous, a lot less cringy than he used to be.
Euronymous has really settled down as of lately. I haven't heard dying. He hasn't been in the news very much lately.
After his murder, he became much more calm.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a health metal as well.
I mean, maybe.
That would be fun.
Health metal. I mean, it's not metal, but like that's just most hardcore bands. There's a lot of hardcore bands where, I mean, obviously by definition, it's not metal, but all the dudes are like vegan and straight edge.
Well, there's a lot of death metal dudes that are
vegan as well.
Yeah.
But can you hand me the bottle opener?
Oh yeah, sure. There you go.
But yeah,
like all the guys in Carcass.
Yep, they're in cattle decapitation when they can. When they're not on the road and have to eat garbage.
It's tough when you're on the road.
When you're on the road and also do not make very much money.
You saying cattle decap aren't billionaires?
I'm saying that Travis Ryan is not a very rich person. But where were we at? Yeah, this is a spooky ass album. It's fucking spooky as hell, man. The first time that I listened to it was actually, I had never listened to Sun before.
Right.
And I was at the record store in Fargo, or one of the record stores. There's a couple. I was at Vinyl Giant in Fargo. And I was just looking for albums to buy, because this is the way I shop at record stores.
Sure.
Is I just walk in with no plan on what I want.
I hear you. I do the same thing.
I browse through and I find 3 or 4 albums that strike me, where it's just like, oh, this. Okay. Like I don't have a plan for picking anything up because I don't know what's, in stock.
When I was a teenager, there was 2 things. It was what record label is it? And does Tipper Gore think I shouldn't be listening to it?
Is there a parental advisory sticker on it?
Right. If this is Combat Records and it has an I've never fucking heard of this band, but I'm buying it.
I think it's simply because there's so much metal that is so obscure, because there's also so much more metal than there used to be. Like, there's not explicit content stickers on metal anymore.
No,
because nobody from the advisory board has bothered to listen to it.
Nobody from the PMRC has been made aware.
They actually have to listen to it in order for that to be put on there. So very rarely do I see something like that on a metal album, generally speaking.
Yeah, like when I was like I said, when I was a teenager, a lot of these Metal like Relapse or Metal Blade or Combat, they're all subsidiaries of Columbia Records and Atlantic Records.
Yeah. Well, and it's the height of the Satanic Panic as well, where people were actually gave a shit and were worried.
Right.
That this was going to be, that the music was very, I think it was like right around that, mid 90s when the focus shifted. We were talking about Doom earlier.
Yeah.
The focus shifted from music to video games very quickly, I think.
Right.
Around the mid 90s as the thing that's going to corrupt our children.
Sadly, it took my focus away from music, I think, at the time. I was made to be excited by the fact that parents thought Satan was going to get the kids. So I'm like, sweet. I want
Satan to get me.
I want Satan to get me.
Let's play this. But yeah. I was looking around for the score on this here. Oh, I was talking about when I first listened to this. So I picked it up and I didn't have a record player on hand when I was staying at my friend's house that night.
In Fargo.
But I just looked it up on Spotify and started listening to it. And it was like 3 a.m. and I was sleeping in her living room.
Was it this album?
Yeah, it was this album. I was sleeping in her living room. It was 3 a.m. I'm in a strange place and it's dark. And I'm like, okay, there's windows in this room that are open. I don't need to be thinking the whole night, oh, there could be someone looking through that window. I don't need to be thinking that the whole night. So let's not listen to this. The opening track reminds me of the ambient noises from the movie Sinister. Have you ever watched Sinister?
I've never seen Sinister. It's been recommended to me.
About 90% of Sinister is the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen. And then the last 10% of the movie is stupid.
Okay. Oh, that's...
It's a terrifying movie with, I think, some fairly well-earned jump scares. So people shit on jump scares, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because they're way overused in so many movies.
Right.
But I think...
And cheap.
If a jump scare is earned and built up, then there's nothing wrong with it. Like it achieves the desired effect. It's terrifying and it's been set up and earned. If the atmosphere has been building and there's so much tension and terror that is happening on screen, and it leads up to a jump scare that is, first of all, like, yeah, you feel the tension building, so you're expecting something to happen.
Sure.
But the expectation is part of what's so terrifying about it. And if you cannot predict when the jump scare is going to happen or how it will happen, then I think it is earned and deserved. And there is a particular scene because the Ethan Hawke's character in the movie discovers all of these tapes. There are all of these snuff films, basically, in the attic of this house that he's moved into.
Wow.
And there's one of them that's called like Pool Party or something like that, or Barbecue, that is so fucking terrifying. But there are these ambient tracks basically playing in the background of that movie that do such an amazing job of building up tension. But ultimately, the monster of the film just looks like Mick from Slipknot.
Okay.
Like he's, the lead guitarist from Slipknot, the mask that he usually wears.
Yes.
He just looks like that because he's got the long, greasy hair. And the mask looks exactly like the creature's not wearing a mask. That's just his face. He also has a really fucking stupid name. He's called Bagul. Bagul. He's like a Mesopotamian demon or something. But we learned that he's a Mesopotamian demon because Vincent D'Onofrio is playing a college professor that gets consulted, because that's what Vincent D'Onofrio does these days, is in shitty horror movies. He is a college professor that people go to and ask, what is the monster? Please give exposition.
Well, he's going to be an Italian cold cut.
Just like I just realized you're talking about gabagool.
Gabagool.
Give me some of the gabagool.
Gabagool.
Give me the gabagool.
Oh, you know how scared me the shit out of me the other day? What was
Here's
that?
the gabagool.
Gabagool.
I'm pretty sure that's a discussion we had off mic. is because I've never watched The Sopranos, but the one thing I know about is gabagool, and I didn't know until recently that that's a bastardization of the word capicola.
Right, it's capicola,
which refers to it's an Italian cold cut.
Right, it's a beef from the shoulder, a very thinly sliced cold cut.
It's a seasoned cold cut that's capicola.
Gabagool.
But New Jersey, the New Jersey Italian American accent has diverged so much that it has now become gabagool.
Gabagool. I mean, it's been that way for a while too. I mean,
yeah. So because The Sopranos takes place in the Italian American community in New Jersey, they say gabagool.
I wonder how many delis or deli sandwich kind of places, how fucking sick of that they are. Someone could
give me some of that gabagool.
All right.
Maybe we did have this discussion on air. I don't remember.
I don't know.
Jesus, we veered off.
We have.
So the score I found was 87. Averaged together a couple of them. Pretty favorable reviews from most people. A lot of people generally seem to think, because I found out it was the anniversary from a Reddit post on the Doom Metal page.
Right.
And a lot of people seem to think that Black One is probably their best album, or at least the album that best exemplifies the style they were going for at this time. Because I think it's kind of like Mastodon, right? Where if you have distinctive eras of the band, you can say, instead of saying this is the best Mastodon album, you could say this is the sound that best exemplifies what they've been going for lately. Like you could say Leviathan is the best early Mastodon album out of like Call of the Mastodon, Remission, and Blood Mountain and Leviathan. Leviathan's probably the best.
Well, the bronze singing era.
Yeah. And
that's the following.
Yeah. Out of the bronze singing era, then I would say Crack the Sky is the best. And that sort of, so it's kind of like that situation of like, maybe you have distinctive eras of Sun. I haven't listened other than Pyroclasts, which I get. Pyroclasts also has no vocals on it. That I can remember. I listened to it yesterday after I bought it, but I don't think there were any vocals on it. I was on my laptop writing, trying to get shit done for D&D while I was listening to it. But a lot of people seem to think that this is the best album of that particular era of the band. What's your favorite song on here?
My favorite song is I think it's going to be the last track. It's
Bathory Respect.
Yeah, Bathory Respect. I like that song because it just takes its time.
Yeah.
So well.
I had a lot of trouble picking any favorite on here.
Yeah.
I like all of these tracks. I don't know if I can really point anything out. I wrote down Orthodox Caveman with a question mark.
Yeah. Maybe.
Part of the reason why I think I wrote down Orthodox Caveman instead of something else is Orthodox Caveman also has the closest thing on the album to a riff. And it's very quiet and understated and low in the mix. There is a riff that sounds like a doom metal riff that has been slowed down even more, and it's just kind of very low in the mix.
Which song has the lyric "Cry yourself to ash"?
That could be any. I don't think I discerned a single English word on this record. I don't think I discerned any understandable speech on here. I just kind of vibed with it. I didn't really understand anything.
Oh yeah. There it is. It took the night to believe.
Oh, that's the first track.
Yeah.
That's the first full-length track anyway.
Right.
That's after the intro.
It's track number 2, right.
With Sin Nana. Or is it Nana or something? It's not spelled N-A-N-A, like my grandma, it's my Nana.
My Nana.
It's N-A-N-N-A, which I believe refers to, in Nordic myth, she was Baldur's wife.
Really?
Who, when Balder is killed, she throws herself on his funeral pyre.
Really?
I think that's what that is referring to. That's the only thing that came into my mind when I saw that, was like, oh, is it that one? I'm pretty sure that's who Nana is in Nordic mythology.
Balder, who's killed by mistletoe.
Yeah, because in things that are not God of War,
yes,
what happened was Balder is invincible,
right?
Because all of the creatures of the world and all of the stones and plants and everything all agreed that they would not hurt Balder because everybody loved him.
Sure, he was beautiful.
He was, beautiful and full of life, and he loved to sing, and he was wonderful. Everybody liked this guy, but the only thing that said no was mistletoe.
Sure.
Mistletoe was like, fuck that guy for some reason.
Yeah.
And
that's why that gate is built out of mistletoe.
Yeah. Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, so all of the gods would sometimes entertain themselves by like throwing shit at Balder, and he'd be like, haha, you cannot hurt me, my friends. Huzzah.
I'm invincible.
And it was a fun little thing that they would do. And then one day Loki came to, I think his name was Hodder or something like that. He was blind.
Right.
He's a Norse god that is blind. And one of Balder's many brothers. And Loki was like, hey, don't you want to come in? Don't you want to be in on the fun? Here, I'll guide your hand. Throw this here at Balder. And he handed him a dart that was made of mistletoe.
Sure.
And he's like, throw that. And so Hod was just like, all right, yeah, I'll throw it. Oh, no, I killed him.
Fuck you. You killed Balder.
Yeah. And Loki was like, and it's not this.
That's not at all.
Loki, as he exists in Norse myth, is such an interesting character because he is an asshole, right? But also is a far more, generally seems to be presented as a more sympathetic and relatable type of character than most other, like if you compare it to Greek myth, right? Every single god in Greek mythology is a raging cunt.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
They're massive dickheads all the time. Whereas in Norse mythology, generally the gods are about their own business.
Sure.
They interact with people sometimes, and people occasionally feature in their stories. But most of the time, the gods are on their own bullshit and don't bother humans.
Sure.
And Loki is one of the more villainous sort of characters generally, but also if you take the context of like like Fenrir, I think is like one of Loki has a whole bunch of monstrous children basically, and they're all like viewed as being sort of villainous, but there's a tragedy to it.
Why was it in Fenrir? So I'm familiar. Why does it?
It's been used as the name of a million different wolf type creatures across a million different fantasy things that you've probably read. Fenrir's a giant wolf that will eventually kill Odin in Norse myth.
Right, his grandfather. No. They're not related at all.
Yeah, they're not related.
Sorry, yeah, it's Loki's child.
Yeah, I think Fenrir is the child of Loki and one of the Jotuns. One of the giants.
Well, but, Loki is a child of one of the giants, isn't he?
I can't remember how it works in actual Norse myth.
His mother was a Jotun, and his father was what is the word? Yeah, like angry man or some sort of something.
I don't remember.
If you look at actual Norse mythology,
yeah, it's another difference between Greek and Norse mythology is in Greek mythology, generally speaking, the genealogy of the gods is fairly clear cut, right? You've got Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera. They are the
brothers and sisters.
Yeah, they are the children of Kronos, who is a Titan. And here's the Titans, and all of the other gods are their children.
Right. And sometimes his brother and sister having children.
And in Norse mythology, it's kind of like all over the fucking place. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Odin has 8 billion kids. So are all the gods his kids? No, there's these other ones that are not related to him at all. And there's the giants who are basically gods. And there's all kinds of shit. And you've got the Aesir and the Vanir, and it's fucking complicated. But yeah, we went off on another tangent. What metal are you bestowing upon this, like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
As far as ambient, dark ambient metal goes, this is the best dark ambient metal album I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It definitely gets a gold for me in that respect.
I wrote down ... because I'm just not sure. I think I have to give it a gold.
Yeah.
But it's qualified by the fact that I don't listen to a lot of stuff like it.
Right. Out of all the stuff that I listen to that sounds like this is probably the best.
You've listened to a lot more dark ambient music than I do. Dark ambient music is like your chill out.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's what I put on loudly when I'm trying to tune all you other assholes I work with out.
When you're at work and you're doubling down on something and trying to write a script, you always pull up like a dark ambient playlist on YouTube. Whereas for me, it's usually, I mean, there's all kinds of things. Generally at work, I tend to listen to stuff that's lyrical, but like at home, if I am listening to ambient music, it's usually something like Hammock.
Sure.
Where it's very,
Hammock is great. But
it's very
not dark.
light and breathy and twinkly sort of stuff. Versus this, which is, if I want to be in a spooky mood, I would need to light some candles and get out my red strobe light or something. But I'll have to give this a gold. I've listened to it a lot over the last week or so. I've listened to pretty much the whole thing through probably like 5 or 6 times, I think. Mostly because it's the sort of thing you can put on in the background and just have be on. So yeah, gold for this. Next week, what are we thinking? Well, I mean, by next week, I mean Wednesday, which is a few days from now.
Yeah. Well, I'm figuring we need to flip the switch here a little bit and listen to something that's not so soul crushing as.
See, I didn't find this depressing at all.
It's not depressing. It's just, it's not bright.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's good, but this is not a bop.
No.
This is not a jam.
No. I figured we'd listen to, as I mentioned, as I threatened before, because it is October.
As you've threatened.
Yes, some Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Let's listen to, and we're going to skip the first one. We're going to go straight to Keeper of the 7 Keys Part 2.
Keeper of the 7 Keys. Well, I understand what's going on without having listened to Part 1.
I feel like you won't lose any context.
Okay.
You won't lose any. Yeah.
Context is important to me. All right. Halloween.
I feel like this one has better songs on it than the first one did.
Halloween Keeper of the 7 Keys Part 2.
Yeah, it's fun to listen to. And I'd only realized recently that this was a new singer who was like 18 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yesterday when I was at the record store, there was a Halloween album.
Really? Which one?
I don't remember. I kind of looked at it and was like, oh, that's fun. Yeah. I got really excited for a second because there was, I thought they had Images and Words by Dream Theater. And I was like, all right, but it was just a single for Pull Me Under.
Oh.
And it's like, come on. They didn't have any other Dream Theater. It was just Pull Me Under as a single.
Pull me under.
Which is
under.
It's a great song.
It is.
But I would like the whole album. Images and Words is great.
It's great. It's the first thing I heard of theirs.
It's a really, really good. It's the first thing most people have heard from Dream Theater because they all kind of go about their first studio album.
Well, I hadn't heard of them until this came out.
Yeah. Most other people hadn't either.
91, 92?
I want to say it was it might have been 93, actually. 93? I think 91 was their first full-length album or something like that.
Sure.
We're probably wrong. Anyway, so next time you hear from us, it'll be Halloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2. Keeper of the Seven Keys sounds like a D&D module.
It feels like it a little bit.
An early, like first or second edition D&D, like an AD&D module written by Gary Gygax. It's like Keeper of the Seven Keys.
Ooh, and now Part 2.
Anyway, time to end. Thank you very much for... Oh, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Fuck you. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.
All right. Get out of here.
We really rushed through that one.
Yeah.